Hey, got my Clone GT here. What we're gonna do today is, I barely have more than maybe 300 shots to this, brand new, and I'm gonna do a few little upgrades. First off, I'm gonna replace the O-ring on the power tube and the valve, and I'm gonna put polyurethanes on them. One, they'll last longer, and once they break in, they'll tend to be smoother, but because they will be smoother and last longer, changing them over will be a lot less frequent. As you can tell, I already replaced it on my power tube with the polyurethane here and here. These were the original ones that came with it, which I already replaced. Initially breaking them in, over lube them a little bit, so it gets nice and slick. And once you break them in, be nice and smooth, get a little better efficiency. I also upgraded the valve to a GTI valve. I really can't quite tell the difference visually. The only thing I really notice is that it now has this little lip right here, where this is the original valve that didn't exist. So there's a little groove in there. On the back side, I don't really see a whole lot of difference, and if you notice, when you line up the O-ring, nothing's really changed. It's pretty much still the same. But what I also done with the valve is I also put polyurethane O-rings on these, on all three of them, or to replace it with a 017. These were the originals that came with them. So place these bad boys, stick them in. Like I said, over lube them a little bit initially until they break in. Put the keg back on. Power tube. Screw it all back together. Nice and snug. Put it back in. I'm gonna air it up so you can see how well it seals with the new polyurethane O-ring. It seals perfectly fine. As you can hear, no leaks. Nice and quiet. I took the liberty of rechronoing it with the new GTI valve in there. The original valve I had in there, I chronoed it yesterday, about high 280s average. Put the new valve in, and I just chronoed it using reballs, and I was getting 300. Using my tank, which essentially I'm running below about 500 psi on it. I was still getting over 300 without changing the HP rig. So my initial thought is the GTI valve, I did get a little bit more of a boost. So what we're going to do today also is, since I love upgrading, is I'm replacing my trigger with the Violent Delrin. I opted for a white because I'm basically going for the Captain America look on my Russian Legion Clone GT. So what we're going to do is that aside, take off the grips. Because the reason I'm taking off the grips is I'm actually going to install the magnet in it. The beauty about the Clone GT is taking out the trigger, it's actually a lot less hassle because there's only basically one screw, as opposed to like the die guns or the PE guns where you actually have to take the trigger frame apart. The Clone GT is pretty simple. Pop out the spring. And with a nice small Allen key, pop out the bolt that holds the trigger. By doing so, the whole trigger mechanism just essentially just pops. So I took the whole grip frame, the whole grip off, just to get it out of the way. Now what you do is, if you install the Violent Trigger, there's two holes here, as you can see. This is the original stock hole where the bolt goes through. With the Violent Trigger, you actually have to move it back to the second hole here to get it to reach the switch. Because if you use the initial stock hole, the trigger won't reach the actual micro switch. So screw that back in. Now we're going to make a little minor adjustments. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the magnet in here, and how I'm going to do it is I'm actually going to use hot glue. The reason I use hot glue as opposed to something like super glue is because it leaves residue. If you use something like silicone or hot glue gun, at least once the stuff solidifies you can kind of scrape it off later on, instead of super glue, which kind of leaves flaky residue. The magnet would go right into here where the original spring stop would be. Your other option, from what I can see, is you could probably reuse the spring if you choose to in the Violent Trigger, which you would get a little bit of a bounce, but for my purposes I'm actually going to stick with going with the magnet. So we're back due to a little technical difficulty, but finally got the magnet in and triggers installed. I adjusted everything. Like I said, I opted for the white so I can get the red, white, and blue kind of a look. I'm going to take the stock trigger and put it where it would have been normal. And as you can tell, where it would have normally stopped, you get a little more forward trigger curvature on the Violent, which does actually make it a little more comfortable on the trigger play. So I did install the magnet in there, as I will open it up and show you. I did hot glue it and managed to get it properly. Set up. Which, see if I can zoom in and show you. I hot glued it, the magnet, into where the spring stop would have been. As you can see, right there. Basically, I just hot glued it on the inside and the outside, and basically almost enclosed the whole magnet in the hot glue. So pretty much not going to go anywhere. And that is it. That's all my upgrade. The only thing I'm basically waiting to do now is for MacDev to finally release the GTI board and the new grips with the sensor. Actually kind of opting to put my money into that as opposed to getting the Pooty Mod spring bolt, because I do like the idea of the new board being a color LED, and hopefully they fix the issue that with a lot of these boards, OLED displays seems to burn out quite frequently, and hopefully with the GTI board and the new screen that they address that issue, so you know we're not spending $30 to replace our dimmed out screen all the time, because that would get kind of annoying to me in my opinion. So hopefully that'll take care of it. Like I said, I replaced the power tube with 011 polyurethane O-rings, and I replaced the new GTI valve body with these polyurethane 017s, and I so far had no drop-off issue from the test shooting I did, but right now for me it's starting to get to be late spring into the summer, so first shot drop-off shouldn't be much of an issue at this point, until the weather starts getting cold again. So, oh, another thing I wanted to show you guys is a little comparison between the Clone GT and my Geo. If I place the Geo on top of the Clone, you can see there is a little bit difference in the length of the GT as opposed to the Geo. GT body is slightly longer in the back. The trigger frame is most definitely a lot more pronounced. It's a much bigger trigger frame on the GT than it is on the Geo. And if I can compare about the trigger rake, it is pretty damn close as far as the ergo of the trigger, the Geo and the new Violent that I install, as opposed to the GT, which is more of a straight up and down of a trigger curvature as opposed to the Violent and the Geos, which does make it a little bit more comfortable in shooting. So, enjoy.